Talk about football.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 9 of the We Like Football podcast. I am Hayden Yarashunas, joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Andy Watkins, and Drew. How you doing, buddy?
What's good, bro? I'm snowed in, got a little buzz on. Happy to be here. Happy to be talking about football. It's nowhere else I'd rather be.
Excellent. Yep, you guys got a little bit more snow than we have here in the Baltimore area. No real time to talk about snow because there's so much stuff that we got to talk about with football, namely with the blockbuster trade that happened over the weekend, as well as, I don't know if you've heard, but the Super Bowl is next weekend. So I guess we should talk about that. But before we do, I do have a couple folks that I need to shout out. First, I would like to shout out to my mom and my stepdad. Ron did not realize they listened to the We Like Football podcast. I honestly didn't realize they liked football enough to listen to us babble for an hour once a week. So to my mom, thank you for listening and congratulations on birthing such a brilliant child. Also have to give a shout out to our IT guy in the desert, Pablo. Not only did he gift me a microphone, which is an awesome piece of technology, but he also spent some time last week showing me how to use it and not make it be so sensitive so it doesn't sound like I am yelling at everybody. So thank you to Pablo. Certainly appreciate you, my friend.
Yep, I want to piggyback off all those. Shouts to Pobs. You sound like Audible Chocolate. Couldn't be better. Shouts to Arla and Easy Pass Ron. Love you both. Shouts to my own ma and pa, Linda and Leroy, and all our lady bros and bros alike for listening to the We Like Football podcast. Without any further interruption, let's jump right into the football. You mentioned the blockbuster Jared Goff, Matt Stafford trade. I want to talk about it a little further. The Los Angeles Rams sent Jared Goff and 2 first-round picks, one in 2022, one in 23, in addition to a third-round pick this year to the Detroit Lions for Matthew Stafford. Obviously, pulling some of the attention away from the Super Bowl. This is unprecedented for such a large trade to happen, even granted it's near the end, but still in season. It's agreed to. Obviously, it can't be made official until we enter the new league year. So at this point, it's just agreed upon in principle, but every major media outlet has confirmed it. Jared Goff to Matt Stafford is a done deal. What did you think about it?
Yeah, so I liked it. It seemed like a lot that the Rams ended up giving up, but just to think about it from like the perspective of the Lions, you are receiving Jared Goff, you're receiving 2 first-round picks, one in 2022, one in 2023, along with 1 third-round pick in 2021. It's obvious that the Lions are entering a rebuild. They brought in new head coach Dan Campbell this year. They have young offensive talent to sort of build around. DeAndre Swift, the running back, is only 22. TJ Hawkinson, the tight end, is only 23. And now, of course, you tack on those picks. So it could be a good spot for Jared Goff, maybe to play sort of like a bridge quarterback if he's not actually going to be the future, kind of bridge that gap and be there during the rebuild and help that team be successful. Something that I thought was interesting about the Lions and Dan Campbell's staff specifically, Dan Campbell brought in Mark Brunell, who played 19 years in the NFL, most notably with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I believe he was there for 9 years, has not yet coached a position in the NFL, but has mentored quarterbacks at the combine for the last 5 years. I think that he was looking for a foot in the door somewhere to coach, and ended up being on staff with Dan Campbell in Detroit. So it'll be interesting to see how Mark Brunell does with Jared Goff, if he's able to, pull the best out of Jared Goff and have that situation be successful in Detroit.
Yeah, interesting move from the Lions' perspective. Very understandable. You kind of felt like they and Matt Stafford had reached their ceiling together. Not necessarily any fault of his own. It just kind of seemed that, like, organizationally they had peaked under Matt Stafford and whichever coach they had paired with them. You mentioned they got a lot of assets back for this, including a young quarterback who was a first overall pick. So, there's a lot to like from the Lions' perspective. The Rams on the surface did give up a lot. This isn't anything out of the ordinary. They haven't had a first-round pick since Jared Goff in 2016. They haven't had a first-round pick since Jared Goff in 16. And he did have quite a bit of success in LA. It just seemed that he and Sean McVay had drifted in some way. That the relationship seemed to be kind of contentious underneath the surface. I know near the end of the year that Goff, McVay kind of yo-yoed between Goff and John Wolford. Just before this move was made official, it was announced that John Wolford and Jared Goff would be competing heading into training camp, which is kind of baffling. Goff is a former NFC champion, a former #1 overall pick. You're not expecting him to be in an open competition with a guy who, frankly, we just heard of about a month ago. So you could kind of see why this move was made for LA. Jared Goff did well in Sean McVay's offense in his system, but you kind of get the feel that it was more due to Sean McVay's offensive innovation. He is a well-noted wonderkind. Matt Stafford, even though these two guys are both #1 overall picks, it kind of has felt like Stafford has been bogged down due to being in a lackluster organization. You feel like if you can take a player of his caliber, of his considerable gifts, his arm talent is on a level with Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. I believe both of those two all-time great quarterbacks have shouted him out for his own unique abilities. So I think you pair a Matt Stafford with an offensive cupboard that's far from bare between Cooper Kupp, between Robert Woods, two good tight ends, Higbee, Gerald Everett. Cam Akers really came on at the end of the year, not to mention the league's #1 defense statistically. I think the Rams are set up for success. This is a win now move, but I think it's one that could well bear fruit.
Yep, and you mentioned right on both kind of ends of the spectrum. It makes sense for both teams. The Rams certainly are in a win now type of spot, and with Sean McVay, right, you see what he did with Jared Goff. Matt Stafford, like you mentioned, is certainly a more polished quarterback. So I think the sky is sort of the limit for them. It should be interesting to see how successful they are moving forward. Now, buddy, before we get into the big game, I do have a special treat for you. So if you'll give me a minute, I have a poem here prepared for you. This is, of course, in honor of Amanda Gorman, who will be reading a poem before Super Bowl 55. Amanda Gorman, of course, was the girl who read the poem at the inauguration, kind of stole the show there. She's going to be the first person to read a poem at the Super Bowl. I'm sure that you find that baffling that there hasn't been a poem yet read at the Super Bowl. So is it cool if I take a minute of your time, buddy?
Please, lay it on me.
Excellent. Okay, so the name of this poem is called Me and Andy. Me and Andy, Andy and me, sitting down talking, some Bucks and some Chiefs. The stage is set, the game's a lock, the Jacksonville Jaguars are now on the clock. There's no time for the draft, we got one more game. Both quarterbacks will certainly live on in fame. Brady, Mahomes, GOAT versus Kid. Start the Choco Taco? I sure did. Legion of Zoom against defensive playmakers. This game should be full of offensive haymakers. Watkins and Hartman and Hill, oh my. Don't you dare blink, because the Chiefs can fly. Good luck blocking JPP and Shaq Barrett. Those dudes give O-linemen something to swear at. Gronk and Brady, no Super Bowls. Wait a minute. Is that Todd Bowles? Good for him. Good for him. Andy Reid is looking to go back-to-back. Frank Clark is looking for his 9th sack. The weekend at halftime should be a sight. I guess we'll all be blinded by the light, because the weekend with the song. Yeah, for sure. We'll talk about the big game. That much is certain, but give me 1 second to pull back just one more curtain. There was an ugly scene. It's not a good look, and rightfully so, people are shook. You don't like feeling angry. We don't like that either. But if you don't know about him, go Google Chad Wheeler. Guy's got some demons, that much is a fact, so I'll go ahead and start to react. Simmer down, Mr. Wheeler. Don't have a cow. That lady doesn't deserve to kneel or bow. You got lost in a rage, everything was a blur, but from us here at We Like Football, fuck you, sir.
Fuck Chad Wheeler.
Fuck him. Oh, man. Pardon the French. I'm just not with that violence. Domestic abuse should never be silenced. But enough of the mad stuff. Let's lighten up. After all, we do get to talk some Chiefs and some Bucks. So sit down, get comfy, hell, even grab some scotch, because episode 9 should be
fun to watch.
Let's go, buddy. You ready to talk some Super Bowl?
Oh, God. Really, really well done, pal. Bravo. You're a renaissance man. Your talents never cease to amaze me. Okay. Like I said, I'm putting off shoveling, so I'm chomping at the bit to talk about football. If you don't mind, I'll hop in.
I'd love it, buddy. Do it.
again, bravo. I can't say enough.
And Chad Wheeler, we really don't like you. You're a very large human being. Hopefully you don't hear this and want to fight us. If you do, we're going to take like a chicken style approach. I'm going to jump on Andy's shoulders. He'll punch at the gut. I'll punch at the head, and we'll kind of see where we can go from there. But sir, not right.
Chad Wheeler really stinks. And buddy, between you and me, these two beards, we're 400 pounds of twisted steel and sex appeal. I think if anybody is up to task, it's us. We'll be able to see who's up to task this Sunday between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Kansas City Chiefs, where they'll do battle in Super Bowl 55. That, of course, will be held in Tampa, Florida at Raymond James Stadium at 6:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are notably the first home team, I should say, to host the Super Bowl. They'll welcome the Kansas City Chiefs, who ended the year at 16-2, playoffs included. The Bucs 14-5. Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Bruce Arians, Andy Reid. Just so many storylines, so many things to jump into here.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. Notably, too, there's going to be 22,000 fans in attendance at Raymond James Stadium. 7,500 of them, I believe, are going to be vaccinated essential workers who work in healthcare. Roger Goodell and the NFL kind of gifted those tickets to those healthcare workers. So that's going to be awesome. Notably, also, the Buccaneers are 5-3 at home, right? You mentioned this is going to be the first time a team that is hosting the Super Bowl is playing in it. The Bucs kind of playing at home in their own stadium. The Bucs are 5-3, right? The losses this year at home are to the New Orleans Saints, the Los Angeles Rams, and the foe that will be coming to town, the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Let's jump right in and try to kind of compare these teams quick before we talk about different parts of the game.
Okay. So I made this note here, and it's really as you'd expect. Both these teams were top 7 in total offense and in points scored. They had the league's first and second best aerial attacks, which is to say they were number 1 and 2 in terms of offensive passing yardage. Not too surprising, again, when you're talking about two offenses piloted by Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. And, of course, the weaponry between the two of them, the Tyreek Hills, the Mike Evans, the Chris Godwins, the Travis Kelce's, the Gronks, the Brates. We could go on and on, but we'll get into it. Needless to say, these are two very potent offenses, but two defenses that I think were maybe a little better than given credit for. Both allowed about 22 points per game. You and I have talked about in the past a good defense in the modern NFL is going to hold an offense to this caliber under 30. That's really all you're looking for. These two teams were up to that task all year long. They played good complementary football. Statistically, Tampa Bay's defense was a little better in terms of splash plays, in terms of sacks and takeaways. They also had the league's number 1 run defense by a wide margin, allowed about 80 yards a game on the ground. Now, Kansas City, of course, isn't 3 yards in a cloud of dust. They're no power running offense. Tampa Bay's run defense is an asset, but only so much against so potent a passing offense in KC.
Oh, buddy, pick your poison. You're not going to stop everything. You mentioned the sacks. So Tampa Bay did finish the season with 48 sacks compared to Kansas City's 32. Although something that I did notice, because there was no football on this weekend, which certainly makes me a sad panda. I hate when that happens, and we're about to kind of gear up for that for the next, 7 months, and I'm not looking forward to it. I went back and watched the Kansas City Chiefs and the Cleveland Browns, right, from the divisional round of the playoffs this year, and seeing what Steve Spagnuolo was able to sort of do with his defense. He threw so many exotic blitzes at Baker Mayfield, blitzing safeties, blitzing corners, blitzing nickelback, like just exotic looks that made the Cleveland Browns kind of think, right? So certainly, even though maybe their sack numbers aren't what Tampa Bay's sack numbers are, and we know that Tampa Bay has dudes that can manufacture pressure, right, with JPP and Shaq Barrett that, of course, give offensive linemen something to swear at. Underrated rhyme. I had to really try it, that one. Underrated, yeah. You also mentioned the rushing defenses, right? Tampa Bay's rushing defense is, you mentioned, first in the league, allowing only 3.6 yards per carry, right? But against Kansas City, their passing game is certainly more dangerous than the run threat.
Yeah, just to jump back to really the most important takeaway there, I want you to know as you said, Shaq Barrett, I thought to myself, what the hell is he going to rhyme Shaq Barrett with? So really, that was some Lil Wayne-esque stuff. Bravo again, well done. I don't want to inflate your ego too much. I know you and I are alike in a lot of ways. So,
Oh, buddy, yeah, I won't come out as Lil Wayne's ghostwriter yet. We'll give that a few more episodes. Really get the people in before I mention that.
Anyway, to keep jumping back, you mentioned you had looked back at a game, the Chiefs Browns game. I looked back at a game as well. The Chiefs and the Bucks, as you mentioned, played earlier this year. The Chiefs came out victorious in that game. That was last year, in November, the 29th. The Chiefs beat the Bucks. And again, this was in Tampa Bay by a final of 27-24. So, a very close game in the box score, but it wasn't necessarily that close of a game throughout. Kansas City jumped out to a 17-point first quarter lead, and from there led more or less comfortably for most of the game. Tom Brady threw 2 fourth quarter touchdown passes to Mike Evans, which did make the final score appear closer. Brady's connection with Evans has been strong all year. A stronger connection, Patrick Mahomes to Tyreek Hill. I don't think this was ever more evident than in this game. From the outset, Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill were connected on bombs. At the end of this game, Tyreek Hill had 13 catches, 269 yards. I'll say again,
nice.
Nice. I'll say again, 269 yards. Nice. And 3 touchdowns, 3. Patrick Mahomes threw for 460 yards in this one. He also threw 3 scores. All of them were to Tyreek Hill, obviously. Kansas City had 540 yards of offense, 456 through the air, 26 first downs, and nearly a 37-minute time of possession. We've talked about how good Tampa Bay's defense is all year long. They're going to need to be better than 540 yards allowed if they're going to have any shot on Sunday.
I would say so, yep. And something else that was evident kind of in that first game, just looking at Tom Brady's statistics, he did throw 2 interceptions in that game. He threw 3 interceptions last week. You cannot afford to make mistakes against the Kansas City Chiefs. Everything that you do needs to make sure that you're keeping that offense on the sideline for as long as possible. So it is something to sort of keep an eye on. I don't necessarily put a lot of stock into this game when I'm thinking about Super Bowl 55. I think that Tom Brady is one of the best offensive coordinators in the league, and he's not an offensive coordinator. He's just a dude on the field. But I think that he will be able to maybe exploit some more matchups, maybe kind of see the shifts in coverages and safety roles and things of that nature to maybe not get fooled twice. I really don't see Tom Brady doing that twice. But again, Steve Spagnuolo does throw some exotic looks. We will see.
Yeah, again, as you said, I don't necessarily think that this is a prelude of what's to come. I don't think this guarantees that KC is going to come out victorious and win back-to-back, though we will get into our predictions a little bit later on. Just looking at the box score here, I don't even want to talk about the numbers. I just want to, because it's kind of looking at the box score apparent to me how much star power is really in this game between Patrick Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey, Tyrann Mathieu, Bashad Breeland, very underrated corner, Tom Brady, Chris Jones, name not on here, but another strong player. Frank Clark, you mentioned him during your poem. Rob Gronkowski, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Jason Pierre-Paul, Shaq Barrett, Devin White, et cetera, et cetera. So much star power in this game, and yet it all just seems to boil back down to Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. When it's that obvious, you want to look for stories within the game. You want to look for matchups. We'll look at other matchups, but is there any bigger story here than Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes? I'll answer for you. No, there's not. Tell me why.
Well, you certainly stole my answer. I was going to say absolutely there is not. No, this is sort of like a ceremonious like passing of the torch. If Mahomes is able to squeak this one out, if Brady ends up winning this game, it's almost like Brady planting another flag against just a litany of quarterbacks that he's beaten in the Super Bowl. There's been 6 of them so far. Names like Kurt Warner, Jake Delhomme, Donovan McNabb, Russell Wilson, Matt Ryan, and Jared Goff are the quarterbacks that he has beaten. Now, of course, there is more star power with the quarterbacks that Brady has lost to in the Super Bowl, that, of course, being Eli Manning and none other than Nick Foles. So, of course, we kind of had to throw that one in there, we being me, of course, being an Eagles fan. There is nothing that is going to be bigger, that's going to be talked about more, and justifiably so, than Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes, two Hall of Fame quarterbacks. I don't care how many years Patrick Mahomes has played. He retires today. He walks into Canton. Tom Brady could arguably, after this one, I'm going to save this for the end, but could arguably solidify himself as one of the best to ever play a sport, not just football. But we'll get to that at the end. That's one of my hike it or spike it's at the end. No, Brady Mahomes going to be awesome.
Yeah, you mentioned all the other signal callers Brady's squared off against in the past, in past editions of the big game, from way down to with Jake Delhomme and Nick Foles, to the higher end of the spectrum with with Kurt Warner, with Matt Ryan, with Russell Wilson. He's played against guys who either already are or will likely be in the Hall of Fame. And Patrick Mahomes, of course, is in that company already. He's already a first ballot Hall of Famer. I'm with you on that. There's no argument to the contrary. And I would also say, to this point, it's fair to argue he's the best quarterback Tom Brady has faced on this stage. Their series against one another still kind of in its infancy, really, because Mahomes has only been in the league for a few years. They've squared off 4 times, and they're 2-2 against one another. Each of those games has been decided by 7 points or less. Tom Brady won the first 2, both in 2018. The second, of course, was the AFC Championship game, which went to overtime. KC never got a chance to get the ball back, and the overtime rules were later changed. But Mahomes has beaten Brady 2 times since then. They were both lower scoring games, surprisingly, given the offensive potency we expect from those two. But Mahomes does have a leg up of late, and the stats bear that out. In 4 meetings against Tom Brady, against the Pats / the Bucks, Patrick Mahomes has about 1,400 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, 3 picks, compared to Brady, who in those same 4 outings, 1,200 yards, 6 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. More than a pick a game is un-Brady-like. With that small a sample size, that could be a 1-game outlier. I don't have the specific box scores in front of me, but again, not too much stock should be placed in that. Just kind of interesting to look at.
No, of course, and everybody is going to be comparing everything that they do. If they step on the field at the same time, they play the same game. They're not going to be against each other. They both play on offense. But in the matchup just this year, right? Tom Brady threw 2 interceptions, so that means he threw 3 throughout the other 3 games, right? So maybe that one was the outlier. And again, we don't have kind of the stats in front of us, but it's going to be awesome. Hopefully this is not the last time that we see Brady and Mahomes play on the same football field. I think that Tom Brady is going to be playing football around the time that I'm having grandchildren. I don't think he's ever going to retire. You can keep predicting his decline, but everybody just does so and then looks like an idiot when he plays for another 5 years. I have no idea when this dude's going to hang it up. So hopefully we get to see a lot more of these games. But yeah, this is going to be awesome. So talking about sort of like impressive things with Tom Brady and how he has maintained his body and just been able to play forever, and the Brady Mahomes thing. Tom Brady has been in 10 Super Bowls, right? So, or this will be his 10th, 6 wins and 3 losses thus far. Would this be Tom Brady's most impressive Super Bowl win yet at 43 years old on a new team with a new coach? Had to go through Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers on the road in the playoffs, and Taylor Heineke, of course, maybe the name with the most star power in that group with Brees and Rodgers, right? Now has to go up against a modern day dynasty, one like he was, playing in Foxborough. Is this going to be Tom Brady's most impressive Super Bowl yet?
All the odds do seem to be stacked against him when you lay it out like that. So, just with the narrative attached, I would say, yeah, maybe. But I also think there's something to be said about recency bias. As you said, Tom Brady's been to 10 Super Bowls after all. Each one seemingly more impressive than the last. How do you qualify one against the other? It's kind of a nonsensical argument when you're talking about such a great career, because anytime you make it to the pantheon, you reach the upper echelon, everything that a pro athlete is striving for, there's no accomplishment greater. So to compare Super Bowls to Super Bowls, really bougie problems to have. That being said, if we are going to, do this arbitrary exercise, then compared to some other great Brady feats, of course, that first Super Bowl against the greatest show on turf, Rams, he was a considerable underdog. He was little known, thought to be a game manager, and yet led a game-winning drive, again, against a Kurt Warner-led team that had just recently won a Super Bowl and had offensive star power like Marshall Faulk, like Torrey Holt, like Isaac Bruce. And then another more recent example of another remarkable Brady Super Bowl victory, because God damn it, there has to be so many of those, was the 28-3 comeback against the Atlanta Falcons. Again, more modern day example to look back on, but 25-point comeback. And the worst part of that one was that first touchdown to bring it to 28-10, or maybe, whatever the result of the extra point was, I don't know offhand, 28-9, 28-10, whatever it was. Right then, it felt inevitable that the Patriots and Tom Brady were going to come back, because that's just what he does. So would this be his most impressive Super Bowl win yet?
So
I don't know.
Now your guess is as good as mine. You mentioned Tom Brady maybe being a game manager in that first one where he comes in against the greatest show on turf. I would let Tom Brady manage any game that he wanted to for me. If he wanted to come manage my games, buddy. Do your thing. You mentioned also the 28-3 comeback. You felt like as soon as they scored that touchdown, you hit the nail on the head. You'd seen this movie before, yep. Right? You'd seen it. You know the ending. There could be all the theatrics. You know how it's gonna play out. Did not play out in Super Bowl 52, but who's counting? I of course mean on that last drive when he did not score a touchdown and then made my heart happy. I would say that this is Tom Brady's most impressive Super Bowl win if he is able to do so on Sunday, solely because of the age. And he always had sort of that idea in the back of his head, or like that chip on his shoulder, where is it Bill Belichick? Is it Tom Brady? What is making this New England Patriots dynasty run, right? Who's more important? That was the question forever, especially when Tom Brady, it was announced like last year when Tom Brady was leaving, it was like, oh man, so we got to take a side. Are we taking Belichick? Are we taking Brady? If you took Belichick, you lost. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but I think this one is going to be Tom Brady's most impressive Super Bowl win if he is able to win on Sunday.
Can I jump in here, because I do think there's an interesting takeaway in addition to what you said there. If he does win, the Patriots don't have 7 Super Bowls. Tom Brady does.
Now, yes, early on in his career, that defense was just phenomenal. And I mean, I guess you can't take away what Belichick does. I mean, so we joke it, and I mean, it might be sort of an exaggeration. Bill Belichick might be, if not the greatest head coach of all time, head coach like GM. He's one of the football gurus of all time. It's awesome that we get to kind of watch him. The fact that we got to watch him and Tom Brady in a dynasty is something that's just absurd that we need to marvel at. But it is pretty evident that Brady was more influential in those Super Bowls, I would say. Or in the dynasty as a whole, I guess.
Yeah, I think that is fair to say. But again, it is a small sample size with the two apart. Obviously, coming up in Brady's favor so far. Neither have any career worth sneezing at. You mentioned that there were some stacked defenses around Tom Brady early in his career. You're right. There was Teddy Bruschi. There was Junior Seau. There was Mike Vrabel, Richard Seymour, Ty Warren. Sometimes I like to just spout off names, but there are so many of them that made those Patriots defenses back in the day a lot of fun to watch. However, one thing that was kind of a critique of Tom Brady-led offenses during his Patriots tenure was the group of skill players around him was never anything special. There was a lot of plucky 5'10", 195-pound white guys, not unlike yourself.
Yes, I was out there running drag routes for Tom Brady. He was looking for me. Yes, you're right about that. Me, Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman, for sure, all in the same boat. Yep.
You have soft hands. Who can blame them? Anyhow, now granted, there was the Randy Moss, Wes Welker years in between. But for much of his Patriots tenure, Tom Brady was left to throw to also-rans. That is not the case in 2021. Tom Brady has arguably the best group of pass catchers in the league. A group I would think they would deservingly be pitted against, of course, is the Kansas City Chiefs. So I'll ask you, which of these teams has the better group of skill players?
Oh God. Gosh. So thinking about the names that we rattled off, like Sammy Watkins and McCole Hartman being, afterthoughts to Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and with Patrick Mahomes, of course, delivering them the football. They are at least the most explosive group, and I don't think there's any sort of question about that. And then looking at the other side, right? Tampa Bay is humongous at their skill positions. Mike Evans is 6'5", Gronk is 6'6", Chris Godwin, the little guy, is 6'1", Cameron Brate is 6'5". They also have, Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones in their backfield. I think that maybe from a football perspective, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers might have a more physically gifted set of skill players. However, Kansas City not only has the freakish athletes that they have, they're not going to out big boy you, they're just going to run by you. But they also have Andy Reid, who's so good at scheming them into positions and getting mismatches that it's almost like that's almost like an added bonus for that argument for Kansas City. I think I mentioned before that I was watching the Cleveland Browns and the Kansas City Chiefs. If not, I certainly thought it this weekend because there was no football on. And just watching the motions, the shifts that Andy Reid's able to put into place that gets, Tyreek Hill locked up on a nickelback or God forbid, you're not going to put a linebacker on that dude, but he puts him at like number 3 or the receiver that's closest to the line of scrimmage and pretty much just says, hey, run across the field. You run as fast as you can across the field, right? And get open. There's not another offensive mind, I don't think, that is as talented at that as Andy Reid. So I think that is an added bonus. So with all of that, I'm going to circle back around and say I have no freaking idea who's better. They're both freaking good. They're both so good, man. I don't know.
I hate you because I felt more confident about 3 minutes ago asking the question, and now after listening to you, I'm just as on the fence. On one hand, as you said, skyscrapers all over that Tampa Bay offense between Mike Evans, Gronk, Cameron Brate, Chris Godwin. I'm a Penn State fan. I'm a Penn State alum. I've watched Chris Godwin high point balls for years now, since 2014 at least. 6'1" is kind of diminutive in comparison, but Chris Godwin got bunnies. That boy got hops, all right? He can get up there. In addition to that, one guy who he didn't even mention is Antonio Brown in Tampa Bay. Arguably the best receiver in football a few years ago. Scotty Miller is another guy who is making audacious claims that he's as fast as Tyreek Hill.
Oh, dear God, buddy.
Assuredly, he is not.
Oh.
Not
there are certain things in the world that you just like don't touch, that you're just like, no, that there's no way. There's just no way that I can pull that off. Scotty, buddy, love you. Loved the deep route last week. Please don't bark up that tree, man. Don't bark up that tree.
I'll present it to you like this, and it's kind of a cop out. I think both of these groups have things that make them special in areas where they are indeed better than the opposition. As you mentioned, KC is as explosive as they come. Mecole Hardman, Sammy Watkins, both burners. In addition to Cheetah, in addition to Reek, Tyreek Hill is a generational, scary talent. And he and Travis Kelce are elite, best at their position type guys. Rob Gronkowski was once, not in 2021. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin are both arguably top 10, 15 receivers. Tyreek Hill is maybe top 1. Travis Kelce is undoubtedly top 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to give a slight edge to KC. And as you mentioned, that might just be because of their offensive brilliance between Patrick Mahomes, between Andy Reid. But it just does kind of have that inevitable feeling that they are better and they are going to perform better. We'll get to our predictions when we get there. Tell me about a few more matchups, would you?
We will. Yeah, no, you're not wrong. Having two people that are Travis Kelce is undoubtedly the best tight end in football. He's one, and then there's sort of a space between 2 and 3. Right. Tyreek Hill, that one might be more of an argument, but the fact that he's in a conversation in that conversation, and it's hard to kind of argue against him. Nobody wants to cover him. I don't know, man. This is going to be awesome. All right. Yeah. Let's talk about some more intriguing matchups that are going to go on in the game. So we mentioned last week that Eric Fisher tore his ACL in the conference championship game against Green Bay. Mitchell Schwartz is also expected to miss the Super Bowl. We talk about Tampa Bay's defense, about their edge rushers. I really just their front seven in general, just being able to manufacture pressure. So it is going to be interesting to watch the Tampa Bay Buccaneers get after Kansas City's offensive line, notably, right, Mike Remmers, who has 88 career starts, and Andrew Wiley, who has 35 career starts. They are going to be getting the nod in Kansas City. I believe Stefan Wisniewski as well. I think he's going to be playing guard. Also saw him last week. Wasn't sure if that was for the Fisher and Schwartz injuries or what have you, but I'm assuming that is going to continue. Tell us about who they're gonna play against, though, that offensive line of Kansas City. Who are they playing against?
From what I understand, KC's O-line has been jumbled up all year long, and they've still done pretty well. Mahomes only sacked 22 times this year. There is something to be said for that. However, they do have their hands full going against Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett. JPP, 9.5 sacks this year. Barrett is going to be someone who O-linemen will likely be swearing at. He had 8 sacks, which was actually down from a big career high, but just two formidable presences off the edges. Patrick Mahomes and those 2 tackles you mentioned, Remmers and Wiley, will have their hands full all day long. KC is better served than I think a lot of teams would be, relying on their 3rd and 4th tackles here. Fisher, Schwartz are 2 high-end guys, 2 Pro Bowl caliber guys. They will be missed. But I think having decent experience depth will come in handy. It's a silver lining, I should say. But I think they will give Mahomes and KC's offense a shot. It just feels like, as we've talked about with their offensive weaponry and with Patrick Mahomes' incredible awareness, that this maybe won't be as disastrous as it would be for a lot of teams. Like, for instance, as a Steelers fan, if their two starting tackles were down going into a matchup with Tampa Bay, I'd be saying our fathers all night long. I don't.
Yeah, certainly praying for it. I already sang Andy Reid's praises. I won't possibly do it again. Wait, yeah, no, I might as well. Why not? So Andy Reid, I mentioned about creating the matchups, but not only does he do that, but he kind of takes pressure off of his offensive line almost better than anybody else in the league, with hitting the perimeter quickly, utilizing motions and misdirections, right? Not letting a defense get comfortable, not letting impressive pass rushers like JPP and Shaq Barrett pin their ears back and kind of get after the O-line. He protects his offensive line in that way by utilizing other sorts of plays besides just straight dropbacks. Also, and from the Browns and Chiefs game that I rewatched again last night, something that I noticed and they brought up in the broadcast, the only time that Kansas City went empty or emptied out the backfield and did not have a running back back there to help out in any sort of pass protection was when Myles Garrett was off the field, right? If Myles Garrett needed a break, or if Myles Garrett, got banged up a little bit in that game, I believe it was like a rib injury or something like that. As soon as Myles Garrett stepped off the field, they went empty, they spread you out, and they kind of beat you with like death by 1,000 cuts, so to speak. So Andy Reid's kind of understanding of personnel as well does protect that offensive line. You can't get away from how good that front seven is in Tampa Bay. I just don't think that Andy Reid is going to make future Hall of Famer Patrick Mahomes stand back and take a beating behind that offensive line. I think he'll find quick ways to get the ball out of his hands.
That's it is absolutely an advantage for Tampa Bay, and it will be apparent at times. I think those two will apply pressure. They'll wind up getting them off the field on a few third downs. You just question if that or if anything is going to be enough of an advantage to overcome KC's considerable offense. Which brings me to another matchup here that is very enticing. It's the Kansas City pass catchers, who we've been gushing about for 35, 40 minutes now, against the Tampa Bay secondary. Tampa Bay secondary, very young group, but very talented. And they've really come on a lot in the past 2 months, I think, from when Tyreek Hill ate their lunch, Carlton Davis's lunch specifically with his 269 nice yard
No.
outing against the Bucks back in late November. As I said, Tampa Bay's played better in the secondary since then. They've got 4 picks in their last 2 games. Don't want to gloss over the fact that those 4 picks are in the playoffs against Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers on the road. All right. So they're not playing against you talk about the Jimmies and the Joes. These guys are as upper echelon as it gets, and Tampa Bay has been a wagon. We talk about that front seven a lot. The back half has been playing great complementary football. They've got their hands full, but I do think they should be better prepared to offer resistance, especially after Tyreek Hill's warning shot in the first go-round.
Now, you mentioned Aaron and Drew Brees. Let's not leave out Taylor Heineke, okay? If we're going to talk Jimmys and Joes, let's not leave out Taylor Heineke. No, you're absolutely right. Tampa Bay's defense has been playing awesome. I mean, we gush about their secondary. We gush about their front as well, just the defense as a whole. I find it hard to take anybody over the pass catchers on Kansas City. They're just so good. They're so explosive. They're dynamic. I mean, that secondary can fly around and make plays all at once, but you're not going to fly faster than Tyreek Hill or McCole Hartman or, Sammy Watkins, who apparently has lost a step or whatever, who is still faster than most people on the field. Saw that Antoine Winfield was kind of banged up, Jordan Whitehead as well, sort of that first week before the Super Bowl. And maybe it was a little bit more noticeable this year because there wasn't like a Pro Bowl to take our mind off of it. You got to see like everybody who wasn't practicing. To me, that didn't really, like, I'm not going to put too much stock into that. You have 2 weeks to prepare for the big game. So I'm sure you're going to rest guys and kind of give them a break. Kansas City pass catchers they have a significant advantage in this one against Tampa Bay's secondary, I would think.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's just the nature of the game today. I think the same can even be said on the opposite side of the ball. I would say Tampa Bay's pass catchers have a leg up on KC's secondary as a whole. But the advantage is clearer on the opposite end. And that's not just because Tampa Bay's group is young. I like Tampa Bay's young secondary. They're aggressive. They will make plays. And if Jordan Whitehead and Antoine Winfield are on the field, those 2 guys will make a big difference from their respective safety positions. If not, that would be a huge, huge blow. And I think probably a deciding factor in itself. They're going to need those 2 guys to be aggressive, trust their instinct, trust their eyes, make plays. And you know what? They're going to get burnt regardless. I think a huge, huge difference for Tampa Bay could be if they wind up coming away with a takeaway. Both of the matchups we looked at, interestingly, focused on Tampa Bay's defense versus KC's offense. We like Tom Brady. We like Tampa Bay's offense. And the same goes for KC's defense. As mentioned, on both sides of the ball, these teams are formidable. But for me, I think KC's O versus Tampa Bay's D, and whether or not Tampa Bay can come up with just 1 or 2 timely takeaways, the stops they need, is going to ultimately determine who comes away victorious here.
Yeah, I think so too. And I don't want to jump too far back, but in that first meeting between the 2 teams, and I meant to throw this in earlier when we were talking about it, Kansas City had a 36-minute, 47-second time of possession, meaning they held the ball for more than half the game. If that happens, Tampa Bay has virtually no chance against Kansas City. So sort of thinking about what is going to happen in the game, or maybe some predictions to kind of get into here. I said 2 weeks ago definitively that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would win the Super Bowl this year. I will not walk that back. I'm going to stick with it. I'm not super confident in myself. If you are somebody who is into sports betting and you listen to us, please, for the love of God, don't listen to me. I mean, if you listened to us last week, like, I was pretty much wrong about everything. So if you're going to take one of our opinions more seriously, take Andy's opinions. But I'm not super confident in Tampa Bay just because of Kansas City and how explosive, how dynamic, how complete they are. However, I did say it and I will stick with it. One person in particular, I don't know if you've heard of him. I don't know if we've talked about him yet today. Tom Brady. This will be his 7th Super Bowl win. It's more than any franchise in the NFL. It will be more than any franchise in the NFL. He will be the first quarterback to start in 3 different decades. This is his 5th Super Bowl since turning 37. The dude is just playing at a ridiculous level for his age. His mind might be better than his body. If the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are to be successful in this game, they need to run the damn football. I know I pounded the table for the run game last week with Tampa Bay and Green Bay. It didn't happen. Dude, the best way to keep Kansas City's offense in check is to keep them on the sideline. That is the best way that you're going to do that. I think that if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are able to control time of possession, if they're able to generate a run game, which again, and I mentioned before, right? Kansas City's defense is giving up, let me find the stat really quick, 4.5 yards per carry per rush attempt. I'm no math teacher, but if you do that 3 times, you're going to get a first down every time. Obviously, that's not how it works, right? But there is an opportunity for Tampa Bay to exploit the run defense of Kansas City. I am trying to talk authoritatively and definitively so that I can mask the fact that I am not confident in this at all. I'm taking Tampa Bay.
I believe you. However, I disagree. Though I admire the hell out of your conviction, and I
tried.
I'm glad we don't have to discuss it, and we still have differing opinions because, hey, it makes it interesting. We have something to talk about. I could pick Tampa Bay because the edge rushers are poised to eat. We mentioned that. JPP, Shaq Barrett against 2 backup tackles, even 2 experienced backup tackles. That's a huge advantage. KC will scheme their way out of it. Mahomes will magic his way out of it as he does. But there will be times that advantage is apparent and exploited. I could pick Tampa Bay because the defense as a whole has improved and should be on high alert to keep Tyreek Hill under 300 yards, maybe even under 200. I could pick Tampa Bay because Tom Brady's the GOAT and has more Super Bowl experience than Patrick Mahomes has playoff starts. There's plenty of reasons to pick Tampa Bay. I don't hate your pick. The Super Bowl is about more than this ultra compelling quarterback duel, right? It's about more than Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. There's so many talented future Hall of Famers here. Guys like Tyrann Mathieu, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill are all excellent players, all more than footnotes here in the 55th edition of the Super Bowl. But you're fooling yourself if you think Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes isn't the headliner, and rightfully so. Listen, the NFL is the most compelling show in town, and this newest enthralling season is about to put a bow on a satisfying conclusion, right? The GOAT passing his torch to the up-and-comer and probable GOAT incumbent, Patrick Mahomes. It won't be long till we hate him the same way we hate Tom Brady. Chiefs win 28-24. Another great season, Mr. Goodell.
Wow, even a score prediction. Man, I did not throw in a score prediction, but with how confident I am that the Bucs are actually going to win, I don't even want to take a shot at it. This one might be one that has a ton of offensive fireworks. Buddy, I'm so excited for the Super Bowl this year. I can't wait for it. Before we get out of here, because we're up against it, we did a great job, I think, of staying within our time frame today. So kudos to us. Kudos to you for the document that we're working on here. Looks awesome. Let's get a hike it or spike it in there for the people before we say sayonara and sign off. So I will ask you this, especially after you just picked against him. A victory in Super Bowl 55 will solidify Tom Brady as the greatest professional athlete, not professional football player, not quarterback, the greatest professional athlete of all time. Like it or spike it?
Well, being that I just picked against him, I'm going to double down and say spike it. for a reason you might not suspect. He already is. Doesn't matter. Regardless of the outcome, Tom Brady's been in 10 Super Bowls. He's won 6 of them. He went to the Bucs and overnight turned them from 7-9, 8-8 to a Super Bowl team. He'll probably come back and be in it again next year. Regardless of this game's outcome, Tom Brady's the GOAT in any sport, in any time, in any era. It's Tom Brady. It's Tom Brady.
Ooh, buddy, you had me going one way and then you brought me right back the other way. I'm hiking this because I think that Tampa Bay is going to win the football game, but this would solidify Tom Brady as, if there was a Mount Rushmore for sports figures, Tom Brady would be the statue at the top of Mount Rushmore above the faces. Nobody has been as dominant in their sports. It's his 10th freaking Super Bowl, man. Like this dude goes to more Super Bowls. What's the stat? Like he's more likely to win a Super Bowl or make a Super Bowl than Steph Curry is to make a 3 or whatever ridiculous. Like it's been floating around. The dude is so dominant at his position, what he's asked to do, right? And he's been doing it for so long. I don't think that there is much of an argument. It's also not like you can't really pull another quarterback. Like the one place that I kind of went was like the Michael Jordan thing, but there's a LeBron to Michael Jordan, right? Patrick Mahomes very well may end up being the LeBron to Tom Brady's Jordan, right? But he has a long time to go here. I think that Tom Brady, if he does win Super Bowl 55, will be solidified as the greatest, not football player, not quarterback, professional athlete of all time. Now, with that being said, and us both agreeing on Tom Brady being the best of all time, let's have a little fun. The Cupid Shuffle. The Cupid Shuffle is the Tom Brady of line dance routines, buddy. Hike it or spike it.
I'm going to hike that. Easy hike. It's tired. It's old. It's super white, and it won't go away. But God damn it, the people keep getting up and dancing, don't they? It stays winning, whether you want it to or not. The Cupid Shuffle is the Tom Brady of line dance routines. Big hike.
I love it. What a spin. That's awesome. I'm going to hike this one as well. Much like Tom Brady, the Cupid Shuffle makes everybody around it better. It tells you what to do, to the right, to the right, to the right, to the right. It tells you when to kick. It tells you exactly what to do. And it is just fantastic. You do have, the cha-cha slides and the punk ass chicken dance and all of that. Nope, I'm taking the Cupid Shuffle. Hike this one big time. Last one here, buddy, before we get out of it. Mozzarella sticks are better than onion rings. Hike it or spike it.
Are you kidding me? Is that even a conversation? Listen, you picked the Bucs, I picked the Chiefs, but I know where you're going with this, and I'm going the same. We're hiking it. Of course we're hiking it. You either have a fried onion or you have fried cheese. Are you kidding me? Onions smell like BO and sadness. Cheese is happiness. Hike it. Mozzarella sticks rock. Onions stink. Onion rings palatable because they're deep fried, not because of the onion.
Yeah, I mean, you already knew. Yep. No, I was going hike it as well. Certainly a side. You mentioned that you are a graduate of the Pennsylvania State University, right? Notably down there, Are You Hungry? It was one of my favorite novelty items to get when I came to visit you. Put the mozzarella sticks on the side, put them on any sandwich you want, instantly enhances it. Mozzarella sticks are far and away better than onion rings, buddy. Very well done.
Hey, we like mozzarella sticks. We like football. Everybody enjoy the game.
Now, in honor of my buddy Pablo, nosotros gustamos el fútbol americano. Good night, everybody.